Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the fourth round of the Sinquefield Cup, which is being held in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, yesterday, Nepomniachtchi from Russia played one of the greatest games in his entire career, an absolute masterpiece when he beat Obligatory from the Netherlands in a Nimzo Indian. Now, after such a huge win yesterday, we'll see. Can Jan come back, play another very inspired game? Might he suffer a letdown? Who really knows? Now, in the fourth round, he's playing against Wesley, who's one of the top 10 perennial players in the world. Wesley's had a bit of a weird year. He's had some great results. He's had some bad results. He obviously lost quite recently in the Speed Chess Championship to Hans Niemann, which definitely was not a good showing for him. At any rate, we're back. Both players are playing good chess, it seems like, thus far, and let's jump right into the action. The game starts with the move knight to f3 from Wesley. Jan goes d5, and now we get the move e3. Here we have knight to f6, we get the move c4, and now we have the move e6. Wesley plays b3, we get bishop e7, and now we have bishop b2. Now, those of you guys who have watched my channel a lot over the years, you probably will notice that this opening should seem very familiar. I myself have actually played this setup many times, and oddly enough, I have had this exact same position against Wesley himself, where I had the white pieces and Wesley had the black pieces. So with that in mind, you would expect Wesley to be very well prepared, and let's keep going. We get the move castles, knight to c3, we have c5, takes, and now we get the move d4. As you can tell, both players are still moving instantly up to this point, so it's clear that they're both feeling pretty good. We get knight to e4, pawn takes pawn, and now we have the move bishop to f6. Now, what black is trying to do here is temporarily sacrifice the pawn on c5, but he's trying to argue that with this pressure towards the knight on c3, white is going to struggle to develop the piece on the king side quickly, and black can bring the knight and the bishop into the game immediately. So we get knight to d4 here. Jan plays queen to a5, trying to pressure the horse on c3 once again with this pin from the knight and the queen. So after queen to a5, we now get the move rook to c1 here, protecting the knight on c3, and Jan plays the move knight to c6. Here Wesley goes bishop to e2, and now we get the move knight takes c5. Here the game continues with knight takes knight, pawn takes, and now we have the move castles. Here, knight e4 is played, and now we get the move queen to c2. We get takes, and queen a2. Now, as I mentioned before, this game is exactly a copycat of a game that was played in the American Cup in the year 2023 between myself and Wesley. Now, I'm sure there's a video of that, and I can try to link to it, probably give a link to the recap that I did of that match that we played, which was in the finals of the Sinquefield Cup in St. Louis as well. But up to this point, this is the exact same position. Now, in that game, I played the move bishop to f3, and after I believe the move queen a6 was played, and the game would eventually end peacefully in a draw. Here, however, Wesley has his own ideas, and he now plays the move rook to c2, attacking the queen on a2. Jan plays queen to a3, we get rook to a1 here, an important move trying to kick the queen away, because if you capture on c6 immediately, black can simply take the pawn on b3 here. White's still fine probably after, say, I'm gonna guess rook c1 is probably best, maybe even rook fc1. If you were to take the rook on a8 after queen takes c2, white's actually in a bit of trouble here, because when you move the bishop away, now there is bishop to a6, hitting both the rook and the queen at the same time. So we get rook a1, queen e7 is played, queen takes c6, and now we get bishop e6. As you can tell, at this point, Nepo is still moving instantly, so you would think he's within his preparation, and Wesley has already used about 20 minutes. Now, white maybe has a very tiny advantage here, because black has two weaknesses. You have the weakness on d5 and the weakness on a7, whereas white has the lone weakness on b3. That being said, at this top level of chess, the game probably should be a draw if the pawns all get exchanged. Just to give you an example, say we get rook a b8. Actually, it's white's move here. Let's say we get some endgame like this, for example, just to illustrate the point. Takes, rook b8, takes, g3 here. And after, say, a move like rook b8, with all the pawns being on the same side of the board, 4 versus 3, this should be a draw. So we do get this position with queen c5, takes being played, and here we have the move rook fc8 being played by Jan. Now, at this point, you can tell very tiny advantage for white. Again, the two weaknesses versus one, but overall, it feels like it should be a draw. Now, for Wesley, this is where he feels very at home. Wesley is a very skilled technician. He likes very dry positions with small edges, but no chances of ever losing the game. So Wesley plays rook to a5, we get the move rook a b8 being played here, and now we have the move bishop d1, trying to protect the pawn on b3. Here Jan decides to play this move d4. Now, this is a move that is completely reasonable, all things considered, but I actually feel like at this point maybe there are other options to consider as well. So we get d4, we get pawn takes pawn, bishop takes pawn, rook takes a7, and now we get the trade of the bishops. Now white is up one pawn. Simply put, the reason this might be a little bit more dangerous than the other one with the EFG pawns is that this is a pass pawn going up the board. So you do have this pass D pawn that can run all the way up the board. That being said, at the elite level in chess, this should be a draw. You can also tell that Jan at this point still has 2 hours on his clock. He has pretty much not used any time, and you figure he'll be able to use time at a critical moment, and he should save the game. So we got the move rook to c2 being played here. Wesley plays the move g3, trying to avoid getting ice skater. If you were to play a move like rook d3, for example, after rook to b1, it's spaghetti-o time. Your king is ice skater. So we get g3, creating the square for the king, and now we have the move g6 being played by Jan to also avoid an ice skater, because here if he were to play rook b2, now after rook to a8, his king actually has no squares available. So we get g6, and here Wesley plays the move rook to d3, a very logical move here, because what Wesley is hoping for is rook b2, and now after rook to f3, suddenly your rook guards the pawn from the threat on the second rank, but you also are hitting this pawn on f7 at the same time. So we get the move rook b2, king g2 played, and here Jan plays the move rook 8 b3, trying to force a set of rooks off the board. Now after the move rook to f3 is played, Jan decides to trade the rooks, and here he goes king g7. Now a lot has transpired here. We've gone from a double rook endgame to a single rook endgame here, where white still has this extra d pawn. As you can tell, white has a bit of an advantage here, and I actually personally feel like at this point the way to try and maybe trade the rooks would have been something like king f8, rook f3, and something like rook b7, where now your king can try to come to the center of the board immediately. So we get the trade. King g7 is played. Wesley plays move g4 here, and this move is designed to stop black from being able to push either the f pawn or the h pawn down the road. If you play h5 here, now after takes, and say a move like rook to a3 with the idea of rook d3, white is still quite a bit better. Also, you might even want to consider a move like g5 followed by h4, where you can start pushing this d pawn straight up immediately. So here Jan plays h6, and now Wesley plays the move rook to e7. Now apparently this move is an inaccuracy. I think the computer preferred white to just start pushing the pawns on the king side, but all things being equal, I really do like this move, because when you go rook to e7 here, the idea is that if black plays king to f6, now you can play rook to e2, and I'll just say rook b1 for example. Here temporarily you can start to bring the king closer to the center of the board. Maybe you can also try to put the rook behind the pawn as well. It should be a draw, but there are chances to try and complicate the situation. So here Jan instead goes rook to d2, which I really don't like, because now after king to e3 and rook to d1, here we have the move rook e4 being played, and now Wesley has set up the optimal situation where the rook will cut off the king from ever getting to the e file here. King cannot get over, and additionally you have the idea to maybe even move the king back, kick the rook away, and then look to push the d pawn up the board. So here Jan plays king to f6. Now one thing that I really don't like about this game as we go through the moves is you'll look at the time situation, and you can see that Nepo still has 1 hour and 54 minutes on the clock. Nepo is simply not using a whole lot of time here. He's just moving right away. We get to move h4 here, and now we have the move rook to a1 being played, and here Wesley goes king d3. At this point already, it's extremely dangerous for black, because white is threatening to go king c4 and just start escorting the pawn up the board. Just to illustrate it, at this point the king and the pawn are simply marching up the board here, and white is already winning because this rook cuts off the king. So with the king and the pawn marching up the board, the king not being able to come into the game, it's already a big disaster. So at this point it's already very clear that Jan is going to have to be very, very precise, but he has 1 hour and 53 minutes on the clock, so he still has good chance to save the game. Here Jan instead plays the move rook to a2. At this point the computer says after h5, white is only very slightly better in this endgame after f3, rook a3, and king e2, but he blitzes out this move rook a2 after a bit of a think. Here we get to move f3 after a bit of a think, after a very short think I should say. So now we get the move f3 being played. We have rook to a3, and here Wesley goes king c4, which is the correct move. If Wesley were to go king e2 guarding the pawn here, the difference is that unlike in the previous variation, when you go king c4 here, the pawn is not an h5. You could magically get, let me just set it up, something like this. You'll notice that already here black is very close to creating pass pawns on the king side, whereas here when king c4 is played, you're not targeting the g or the h pawn. So Wesley is ready to start pushing the p up the board, and as you can tell from the evaluation bar, Jan is already completely lost. How is this possible? He has not used a whole lot of time here. He's only used about 20 minutes for the game, but he's just losing. So we got the move rook takes f3. Wesley plays the move d5 here, trying to push this pawn up the board. We get rook to a3, and now we have the move rook e8, and this is another excellent move from Wesley. Now there probably are multiple ways to win, but rook e8 is a genius move here, because the reason this move works so well is if black goes check, king c5 and takes, now you have d6, and this rook is covering the queen square. So black can't put the rook here to stop the pawn from moving forward. And after rook g1 and d7, the rook guards the critical d8 square, and white will queen and win the game. So Jan goes rook to a1. Now we get d6. We get rook to d1, king to c5, and now we have the move h5 being played. Now Jan could have tried to check the king in front of the pawn, for example, where you check, and eventually the king goes to this d8 square. And now after say h5 takes, and let's just say rook to e4, white is completely winning here, because after king to f5 you can simply go rook to a4, and after, I guess, let's just say king e5, now you can play the move king to e7 with d7 d8. If you move the king back to g6 after d7 and f5, I build the bridge, king e7, king d6, check here, check, and then I have rook to d4, and now I push the pawn and win the game. So after king c5, we get the move h5. Here Wesley plays the move g5. Very important move here from Wesley, by the way, because now black is never going to be able to get a pass pawn marching up the board, even after he sacks this rook for the d6 pawn. So here we get to move king to f5, and now we have this move rook to e2 being played by Wesley. Another very fine and precise move here. He brings the rook back, because if black tries to go after the pawns on h4 and g5, you have rook to e4 check, king g3, and now you go rook d4, building this bridge once again, and you're simply going to push the pawn up the board. One sample line would be check, king d5 here, d7, rook d8, king d6, and now your rook guards the pawn on h4. Black can't really push the pawns forward. If you go f5, there's end peasant to win the game, and if you move the rook away, I'll simply go here, king e8 check, queen takes, and once again the rook guards the pawns. Black can't do anything here on the king side, and white has an extra tower and wins the game. So Jan plays the move king to f4 here, and now we get to move king to c6. We have king to f3, and now he plays this move rook to c2. A nice little nuanced move here where the rook can now go to c4 and guard the pawn on h4, but also with the rook on c2, you shield your king from any checks. If you were to play rook a2, for example, there always are some ideas to check with the rook from behind here. But when you go to c2, now there's no check from the c file. You also have rook c4 to guard the pawn. And with these ideas out of play, white has a free hand to move the king and the pawn up the board. Jan plays rook d4. Now we get d7. We have the move king to g3 being played, and here Wesley plays the move rook to c5. And at this point, Jan Nepomniachtchi resigns the game on the spot, because even though he's finally won this pawn on h4, if you take after rook d5, I build the bridge again where I'm pushing the pawn and getting a queen. And if you sack the rook with rook takes pawn after takes, king h4 and king e7, the king is going to capture both these pawns. After king g4 takes, h4 takes, h3, you can simply go rook c2, king g3, king f6. When black goes h2, you sack the rook, takes, push the pawn, get a queen, and win the game. So after rook to c5, Jan Nepomniachtchi resigns this game. Wesley So gets a huge win. I feel like this is Wesley's first classical win in maybe like 6 or 7 months. It feels like it's been an awfully long time since Wesley has won a classical game, but with this win, due to his solidness in the first couple of rounds, he now jumps into a tie for first place in the Sinquefield Cup with this epic victory. For Jan, on the other hand, this is sort of a sign of how difficult chess can be at the professional level. He plays a great game yesterday, one of the best of his career, if not the best, and now he has an unfortunate mishap today where he simply doesn't have a good game. He gets an equal position in the middle game, sort of feels like he didn't have the patience, maybe a little energy spent yesterday played a role, and he just loses this game. So he goes from being the absolute hero, someone we're all talking about, for playing one of the greatest games we've seen in recent times, to playing a horrible game, and suddenly we're back at square one, where that great victory yesterday has simply been nullified by the loss today. This does show how difficult chess is. At the end of the day, it's a very tough game. You can have great moments, you can have bad moments. Not going to fault Jan all that much, because I'm sure it's very difficult after that game to find the motivation to be inspired, but it still does suck, and this shows why top level chess is so difficult. But it also shows why Magnus Carlsen, the former world champion, is so amazing, because the consistency he has every single day is unparalleled in the game of chess. Now, it's not a knock on Nepo, myself, Fabio, or anyone else, but it simply shows how difficult it is to be so consistent. So On that note, I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap from the 4th round of the Sinquefield Cup, which is being held in St. Louis, Missouri. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with some more great recaps in the coming days. I think maybe Sinquefield Cup. I think Levy's playing a tournament as well. So a lot of recaps are coming in the near future, so I hope you guys stay tuned for that, and have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.